Now, you know, political scientists, military officials, they like to come up with these polysyllabic terms to pretend that their fields of intellectual inquiry have some sort of intellectual content, which they don't. So they use expressions like deterrence, capability, and capacity. But then you can leave it to some Israeli general to clarify exactly what that means. In this case, we can thank one of those Israeli commanders who became rather more famous later in life, Ariel Sharon. In June or May 1967, he told the Israeli cabinet that Israel had to attack because Israel was losing its deterrence capability, our main weapon, the fear of us. And that's exactly right. Deterrence capacity basically means the capacity to terrorize your adversaries into submission to make sure that they don't get out of hand. And periodically you have to restore the deterrence capacity of Israel in the Arab world, and you restore their deterrence capacity by periodically bombing them, inflicting enough destruction that the Arabs are reminded, because you know Arabs only understand the language of force, that they're reminded who's in charge, who's boss, who follows orders, and who gives orders. And so in 1967, Israel delivers a lethal blow to radical Arab nationalism. It never quite recovered from what happened in 1967. Egypt was then the leading power in the Arab world. Now it's a third-rate power. The head of state, as the Egyptians like to say, is a laughing cow. And in bringing the story up to the present, the same problem began to occur for Israel at the beginning or in the middle of 2000. In May 2000, the Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Party of God, inflicted a devastating defeat on Israel after an 18-year-long guerrilla war. And this defeat of Israel was celebrated throughout the Arab world, much like Nasser's defiant gestures were celebrated throughout the Arab world in 1967. And Israel worried that its deterrence capacity was now being undermined due to the defeat that the Israeli military suffered in Lebanon in May 2000. And so another war was inevitable because Israel had to restore its deterrence capacity, the Arab world's fear of Israel. In particular, there's this character, the head of Hezbollah, Nasrallah, and he kept taunting the Israelis, saying, "We're not afraid of you, come if you want, but you're not going to leave the way you would like." And Israel didn't like the taunting. They didn't like the fact that he was transmitting the wrong message to the Arab world, namely that Arabs don't have to cower before Israel, they don't have to fear Israel, and they don't have to follow Israel's orders. So Israel began preparing for another war with the Hezbollah, and the summer of 2006 it found its pretext when Hezbollah captured 2 Israeli soldiers. Several others were killed in a firefight, and the Hezbollah demanded in exchange for the soldiers the release of Lebanese prisoners held by Israel. Israel then unleashed the full fury of its air force in the summer of 2006. It geared up for a ground invasion, but it suffered, alas, and another ignominious defeat in the summer of 2006. Time doesn't allow me to go into the details, but it was quite a stunning defeat. Not I'm particularly impressed by military victories and defeats, but for those who are, it was a quite extraordinary defeat that was inflicted on Israel. The Air Force could not stop the Hezbollah rocket attacks. The Israeli army was barely able to fight in Lebanon. In fact, the Israeli army wasn't even defeated by the Hezbollah's crack troops. The Hezbollah's crack troops had been stationed on the Litani River waiting for a major Israeli invasion that never happened. the army was basically, the Israeli army was basically defeated by the village militias on the border with Israel. Israel deployed 30 to 40,000 troops. Hezbollah had 2,000 regular troops, 4,000 irregular ones. Israel delivered or fired 162,000 weapons during those 34 days in the summer of 2006. Hezbollah in all 34 days fired about 5,000 rockets. So what Hezbollah fired in the whole war is what Israel fired or delivered on any one day in the war. And still Israel suffered a huge defeat. And now Israel, of course, was beginning to get quite concerned that its deterrence capacity had now dropped another notch. Israel, after the 2006 war, was itching for another attack against the Hezbollah, but it didn't yet have a military option. In mid-2008, Israel then tried, now we're getting closer to the present, about a year ago, as most of you will remember, Israel began trying to conscript the United States for an attack on Iran, hoping that in decapitating Iran, it would also decapitate the Hezbollah and thereby humble its two main regional challengers. The United States gave a thumbs down to the Israeli proposal. Israel then began to threaten through its unofficial emissaries, the sometime historian and full-time propagandist, for example, Benny Morris, that if the U.S. didn't launch a conventional attack on Lebanon, then Israel would use nuclear weapons. The U.S. still said no. Obviously, Israel can't do anything without getting that green light, or at any rate, yellow light from the U.S. And now Israel was extremely upset because its deterrence capacity had dropped another notch. Iran was going its merry way. Nasrallah kept taunting Israel, and Israel had to do something to restore its deterrence capacity, to restore the Arab world's fear of it. And it had to annihilate a defenseless target.